Be a sponge and then bring the juice.
Hello and welcome back to the Edge of Greatness. I'm your coach, Charles Schultz, and I'm excited to have you here today. Another fantastic episode where I think we can learn a lot about how to approach going hard without going over that line, right? I think a lot of people today are working nonstop, 24/7, never turn it off, and they struggle because we're living in the red. We're living life on the edge of burnout all the time. And it's a tough place to be because I know we want to get ahead. I know we want to be great. I know we want to pursue these things at a high level, but we've got to learn and find ways to shift gears. Today is going to be an extended coach's corner. We're going to talk a lot about burnout, redlining, how to notice it, how to recognize it, what it is, how to avoid it. And then I'm going to do a special conversation with Craig Hannum in our World of Greatness. So we'll get to that at the end. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss that. But let's start here. What does it mean to redline? I think a lot of people understand the term burnout. I think a lot of people understand what I'm saying when I say redline. But think of it like this as a car engine, right? We have the numbers as we accelerate, right? And then when we get to a certain point, it starts to turn red. We get to this point where the engine's in overdrive. And overdrive is a tough spot because we only have so much time we can spend there because we're burning fuel at a high level. We're really pushing ourselves and eventually we're going to break down. And so when we think about this and we look at some of the things that we're doing, we got to think about, why do we redline? Why do we push ourselves to this point? I think a lot of it stems from a culture that we've created. We've created this place, this hustle culture, this mentality that we have to be on 24/7, this working mentality that it's no days off, I'll sleep when I'm dead mindset. And that's a dangerous mindset. We all need breaks. The hardest workers in the world take breaks. You just see glimpses of the work. And the truth is, we work better in smaller, confined, restricted bouts. Our brain is wired to procrastinate. And if you're always working, you're constantly going to be procrastinating because there's no end. If you gave yourself 20 minutes to work and that was it, you'd get a lot done. And we've lost this ability to balance. We've lost our ability to ease off the gas. It's all in all the time, all gas, no brakes. We don't know how to step away from accelerating all the time towards whatever it is that we're chasing. And eventually, like I mentioned before, if you live in the red, you're going to break down. The balance has to exist. And one of the things that typically causes this imbalance is lack of self-care. We don't prioritize exercise. We don't take vacations. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I think that's a big one. Our diet goes by the wayside because we try to grab something quick. We eat at our desk. We move through the day without realizing, oh my gosh, I just ate a whole bunch of stuff because I was trying to get work done. And then we stay up late at night watching television or doing more work, and we don't get good quality sleep. There's no breaks. There's no end. It's all or nothing all the time. We need to find this elimination of hustle culture. We have to create balance, and we have to take care of ourselves. That is one of the most important things that you can do to avoid burnout, to avoid living in the red. Recently, I've gone through a lot of changes in my life. I I sold my business. I moved my family. I am in the transition between careers, trying to figure things out. And that's kind of where this conversation topic came up from. And for me, there are three places that I find myself inching towards red. And I think as you look at your life, you need to start to recognize some of these things for yourself. One of the things that I do one of the things that I notice in myself is when I add something new to my already busy life, I inch towards the red. There are so many things that I want to do. I'm a constant thinker of what can I do next? What can I do now? I want to add projects. I'm constantly on the go. But what that leads to is too many open windows, too many open browsers. I need to close some tabs. And if I'm constantly chasing the next thing, I'm just adding more to my problems. The other part that tends to lead me into the red is a deadline. And I believe deadlines are good. I'm actually going to have a full episode on how and to use deadlines, why we should use deadlines, and where they belong. But too many deadlines, constantly chasing deadlines, that can push us into the red. And anytime we get close to something being due, we push ourselves a little bit harder. We work a little bit closer to the edge of what we got left in the tank. You know, you might go that extra lap without getting the pit because the finish line is just around the corner. And that's important to recognize. So that way, if you do have a deadline and you do work towards something that's on the edge of your energy level, that afterwards you have a pit stop, a break, a vacation, something that recharges your energy. The third thing that constantly pushes me closer to my red is when changes occur in my life. And as I mentioned just at the beginning of all this, I've gone through a lot of changes recently. I sold my gym. I moved my family. I'm in a new situation with new roles and responsibilities. I joined this network and that added some things to my plate. And all of those things require new energy expenditures. They're all challenging me in different ways. And it's not necessarily the change, but the effect on my routines, my systems, my habits that forces me to use more fuel than usual. Because when we're living in this flow of day-to-day life where everything's the same and it becomes systematic, it's a low fuel operating system, right? Habits are low fuel. Once it starts, it just goes. We become habitual, and it's very easy to get through a day without thinking about it. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, the day's over. Cool. But when you change things, now I have to think about each movement, each operation, each next step. And that has its effect. That takes its toll. And so that is the challenges for me that I've noticed that push me into the red. For you, I think it's important to sit down and look at, okay, when do I feel like I'm most stressed? When do I feel like I'm getting close to the edge of burnout? When do I feel like I don't know if I have any more left in the tank? And list those things out so you can start to recognize them. Like I mentioned before, today we're going to do an extended coach's corner. So we're going to dive into how to avoid redlining, right? Or how to shift out of the red if you're already there, right after this commercial break.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. In the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, we're on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Hello and welcome back to the Edge of Greatness. I'm excited to have you here for an extended Coach's Corner today. We are going to talk a little bit now about how to avoid redlining. I think that this is an important thing to understand, that redlining is something that we're going to find ourselves doing regularly. You can't avoid completely getting into the red, but what we can do is avoid staying there or burning ourselves out. So there's three things that we're going to dive into within this area of avoiding redline that I think are important areas to discuss. First is self-care. Second is understanding what pushes you. And then the third is scheduling breaks. So when we think about this first section, self-care, I believe that self-care is one of the most ignored parts of our life that needs to be addressed and is completely within our control. And I think that that's why I find it to be so important, is that we have the ability to prioritize exercise, sleep, nutrition, de-stressing through reading, writing, journaling. The self-care part is entirely within our control. We have the choice to do it or to ignore it. And way too often we just let it go by the wayside. We feel like we're too busy. I don't got time for that. Yet, every night we sit down, we turn the Netflix on, or we pop on our favorite show and we binge watch a couple episodes before bed. The hard reality is we have time for the things that we value. What we don't value is our self-care. We need to take a new script and flip the page and focus our energy on taking care of ourselves. There's a big thing that happens when you start to improve your self-care. We've talked about cars and engines and things like that. When you take care of yourself, you build a bigger engine, which means you can go harder, which you can go faster. You're more powerful. You can tow more, right? We often think that if I go more, I'll get the stronger engine. But no, it's taking care of ourselves. It's taking the brakes. It's stepping away that builds the bigger engine. And that is the focus that we need to have, is we need to spend time building that engine. So then when the time comes, we can operate a little bit in the red. And this is part 2, is to understand the signs, to pay attention to what are the things that push you into the red. I discussed the things for myself earlier. I talked about how and what things drive me closer to the red, or when I'm revving my engine. But that's for you to figure out for yourself, because we all have different triggers, different places where we step on the gas and that engine revs to 9,000 RPMs. We need to understand that. Create space for yourself to understand what those things are, and then create space around those areas where you get into the red to decompress, to step back, to take a break. And that's number 3. We need to schedule breaks. We need to create balance. It's crazy to me that in the United States, 768 million vacation days go unused. That's baffling. Like, why? Because we think we have to work. We talked about hustle culture earlier. We're so drawn to constantly working that we're forgetting to take care of ourselves and take breaks. And then the other interesting part about this is that because there's so many unused vacation days, that's more than 50% of Americans don't use all of their days. And those who do go on vacation, many report working while they're on vacation. Are you really getting a break? Are you really decompressing? Are you really stepping away at that point? I just find it interesting that we don't have an ability to turn things off anymore. That break is essential to resetting. And the other part of this is that when you schedule time away, the work you do when you come back is better. You can't constantly be on go. You're going to slowly start to lose energy, momentum, strength, stamina. All of those things just go by the wayside. Find ways to rev the engine, back off, rev the engine, back off. And the more you get comfortable doing that, the more productive your life is going to become. Now, I do think that there is something to ponder here. and something to consider. Redlining for a moment isn't bad. Living in the red is. When you think about the redlining situations, the redlining moments in your life, think of it like you're on the freeway and you're about to pass a car. Or better yet, you're on a 2-lane road and you got the like single dash and you have to speed around the car, right? You don't want to dilly-dally around the car. Somebody else is going to come flying up the other direction and we got a problem. So you're going to step on the gas. You're going to rev the engine and you're going to fly by, right? But once you're past, you need to let off the gas. You need to let the momentum of the push just kind of carry you forward and let the engine kind of calm back down. Too often, though, we step on the gas and we hit the red and then we never shift gears and we're just constantly pushing that RPMs, 9,000, 9,000, 9,000, 9,000, 0. I would much rather you accelerate, relax, and create small windows of which you're going hard. You can go hard for short bouts. That's not a problem. The problem lies in going hard for extended bouts without any break in sight, without any end in sight, and just constantly pushing yourself to this limit that is going to lead to all kinds of destruction, both within your work, but then also mentally. It really takes a toll. So recognize what puts you in the red and create balance. Take care of yourself. Build that bigger engine. And then find places where you can refuel. Find places where you need to accelerate. Create consistency on how you take care of those different pieces. And I feel like you will find yourself further away from burnout and more focused on the work that you need to do every day. It's really hard if you're constantly pushing the red to stay focused and motivated to get the work done. It's a lot easier when you feel refreshed, feel energized, and you feel focused when you show up to get that work in. So find those different places, find those different ways, create that consistency. Before we take a break here, I do want to say thank you to my sponsor, Go Primal Lifestyle and Fitness Apparel. Use promo code for 10% off EDGE10. Go check them out. It is incredible apparel. Chris is doing some incredible things. His show is awesome. His apparel is awesome. It's just a great guy to get connected with. And I think that you're going to find that you enjoy a lot of what he's doing if you're enjoying what we're doing over here. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be with Craig and we're going to talk about his recent Save a Life event and some of the things that we can do going forward to continue to grow, learn, and develop those skills. So we'll see you here in just a moment.
What's up, everyone? This is Chris Fontana, founder of Go Primal Lifestyle and Fitness Apparel and host of the Primal Mindset Show on NGBN TV. Coming to you from Long Island, New York, with the transformative show that shares inspiring stories of overcoming adversity and embracing personal growth. Hosted by me, who has triumphed over immense challenges, including addiction, mental health struggles, and significant weight loss. This show features conversations with individuals who have conquered their own obstacles. Through heartfelt discussions, the Primal Mindset offers hope, guidance, and inspiration to listeners, encouraging them to persevere and never settle. Join us on this empowering journey of resilience and transformation as we share the stories of incredible individuals who have embraced the power of the Primal Mindset. Join us on NGBN TV.
Hello and welcome back to the Edge of Greatness. I'm excited to be joined today on A World of Greatness by Craig Hannum. Craig just recently did an event where he was equipping people to save a life. Craig, for those who were unable to attend the event, real quickly, what was the main focus of this event and what were some of the things that you took away from it?
Hey, thanks for having me, Charles. So the main reason for the event was to train people how to pick up on subtle indicators out there when it comes to suicidal behavior, because there's always an indicator. And, and I said this in the beginning, I don't want to be insensitive. I know we've all lost people, but we found out that one thing I took away from it was the aha moment that people were telling us, they were writing it up online, that when they started thinking about all these indicators we were talking about, they could recall actually seeing it in the person before they lost them. And that's And it's so true. And that was my biggest takeaway, that people were actually, one, paying attention, they were engaged, and then it hit them like, man, I missed it. We're not trying to beat people up on what they missed. We're trying to, equip people to be better prepared the next time they encounter the situation, because they will. It's going to happen again, sadly. If you look at the numbers, you're going to run into this at least a dozen times more in your life where you're actually stopping somebody, because you're paying attention. And that's a good part. And that's a positive causality when it comes to this kind of training, is we're going to have an increase in reporting, but less incidents. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
What is it that led you to being involved with suicide prevention?
It started back in 2010 when I got assigned to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And our approach in the military to suicide was quite honestly non-existent. In fact, we as leaders, we were the ones reinforcing the stigma around it, by calling people broken, calling them weak, calling them sissies. I mean, all kinds of stuff, just so that we would feel better not having to deal with it. And when my guys were responding as military police officers, they were responding to so many calls weekly. And I was like, man, we got to fix it, because my guys are getting burned out. You're talking about, hitting that red line. My guys were hitting that red line, and they're actually, idling in that red line. It was just really stressful for them. So I said, okay, we got to fix this. And I knew we couldn't do it by ourselves. I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So I brought in a few folks, some experts around the base, some mental health providers, some psychiatrists, and I said, hey, we need to fix this. I even brought on Army chaplains. I said, I need you guys on call. And I know that's, sometimes people say, well, is that going to fix the problem by stressing those guys out? Well, at the time, it was a Band-Aid until we actually got a system in place. And then we had a rotation, and we're bringing more people in. They were bringing other senior leaders that said, hey, I want to get your training. Can I be one of those guys that goes out and helps? Yes. So that's what we did. And then when my retirement got approved in 2014, I was offered the job as the Army program manager for the suicide prevention for the Army. And I started that September 2015. And it's funny, when I'm listening to talking about vacation days, man, I was guilty of it. I had 110 days of vacation when I retired from the Army saved up, because we were so used to going 100 miles an hour. That was our style, work ourselves to exhaustion, and it's not healthy.
It isn't, but it's real easy to get sucked into that. It's really easy to find ourselves like, oh man, it's been 2 years since I went on vacation. Oh man, it's been, 180 days straight of doing the same thing over and over again. So
Right.
how can we help people understand what they need to do to start to take care of one themselves, but then also if they recognize somebody else going down that wrong path, how can we start to shift from this go, 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 go mentality to let's focus on the people around us. Let's pay attention to ourselves and those in our immediate vicinity to help them to find balance.
Well, quite honestly, we have to be able to live it, and that way we can teach it and say, "Hey, look, here's how I cope with this," and I'm very open about it. I talk to a therapist once a week when I was the program manager. Just keep my mind straight. I would put my phone on do not disturb from like 10 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the morning, and there was times where I would miss calls. And I couldn't beat myself up about that. So you kind of have to live that. That way you tell people, hey, you cannot be available 24/7. That's just not how life works. And one person said, well, what if that one person at risk calls you and your phone's it's on do not disturb? How guilty are you going to feel? And I'm like, well, one, yeah, I'm going to feel a little guilty. But when your phone's on do not disturb, if they call more than once, your phone's going to answer. And if it's an emergency, don't waste time calling me. I wasn't a first responder at the time. We have those systems in place. We had 911. Now we have 988. And if it's going to get really bad, then don't waste time calling me. If you need emergency personnel there, I'm not that person that was going to save the day. And I had to admit that to myself, that I was not going to be there every single time to save the day. I don't have a red cape on, or I'm flying in. I'm like, oh, I got you. It's fine. Don't worry. I fly at light speed. I got this. You have to admit that to yourself, and it's not a negative thing. And in the beginning, I said, no, I will make sure I'm available 24/7. And the professionals around me said, no, that's not how this works. We knew we had a good plan. We knew what we were going to do and what we were building was going to work. And that's why we had to train others. And that's the whole point, that equip ourselves to save a life. And training so many other peoples to be first identifiers is going to help take the burden off guys like me, who I will work myself to exhaustion. That's hard to shut down, but we got to get those other people trained so that we have folks in the community that way, because chances are it's going to be somebody, a family member, a good friend, a coworker. And we need more people out there in these communities to say, hey, yeah, Craig knows how to fix it. However, he trained us. We know how to deal with it. If it's really that bad, we're not going to waste time calling Craig. We're going to call 911. We're going to call 988. We'll call Craig after the fact. And that's exactly what started happening. And right around 2017, 2018, I had a pretty good system in place where the 3 bases that I was in charge of, I had my first responders out there, my first identifiers. They were all trained. We had commonality of language. They knew what to do. And I was getting emails after the fact, hey, we had this incident. Here's what we did. And I would read it, hey, good job. And if it was important, yeah, they would call me right away because my first identifiers had my number directly. Because it's the guilt part. We feel guilty if we're not there helping that one person that's truly at risk.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the challenge of it all, because currently, I mean, people are going to get lost, and that's unfortunate. But I heard you mention something that I want to dive into, is that you believe we can eradicate suicide. We can eliminate suicide.
Absolutely.
We can get it to go away. What does that
Yes.
world look like to you?
Well, it takes a lot of work. When I was challenged by senior leadership in the military, and I presented my plan, and I told them how broke it was and what we needed to do, they said, cool, go out and prove it. So that was stressful. And we actually were able to do that. And those 3 bases I had, 0 suicides for the year of 2019. But I didn't do it by myself. That was, I would say that to people, say, hey, we are a month away from 0 suicides for this year. And I'm not doing that. You guys are doing that. You guys taking the training, paying attention, reaching out with questions. Hey, I had this incident. What do you think? Tear it apart for me. Cool. Giving the feedback, having that open dialogue. I didn't do that by myself. And that's what we're going to do for North America. We're going to tell people, hey, you can't do it by yourself. Don't expect that you can do it by yourself. We train 1,000 people. They're going to train 1,000 people, and so on and so forth. And it's just going to cascade. That way people don't have that, as you were saying, that red line effect. We don't want the folks that we're teaching to get exhausted with this. But some will. We know we will have some folks that will say, I can't handle this mentally. I was talking to this guy and it failed. And he killed himself moments after I left his house talking to him, and he seemed to be fine. We're going to have that small percentage of guys who are like, this is not for me. And that's okay. I would rather people say, I'm not the one that should be doing this. Cool. I'd rather you tell me that. I'd rather have fewer people who are better equipped and ready to deal with it than have, 50% more folks that aren't ready to do it.
Right.
Or unwilling. But yes, I do, Charles, I do believe, and this isn't just me being a diehard optimist. I truly believe that suicide is 100% preventable, and we can eliminate it.
I'm with you on that. I think that, when you look at the deaths of the world, this is the one that is a choice. And then that means that we can affect that choice. So for those who missed the training and want to connect with you real quick, we got a few seconds here left. I want to connect them with you. How can they reach out? What's the next steps? Where can we go to start getting more people equipped?
Well, I know there's going to be a link on our webpage that I'm paraphrasing here, but I think it's going to be titled "How to Get Craig in Your Community." You click on that link, you get an application process. Send me an email directly, Craig@ngbn.tv or ngbntv.com, and we can work on that. And check out our webpage. It's actually pretty cool. Especially that map that I saw for F3, how to connect with guys in your area. We're going to use that to help expand our ability to get into 100 communities in the next 18 months.
Perfect.
And we've gotten invitations already. I mean, I want to say about 6 invitations just in the past 72 hours since we did the broadcast on Saturday.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. I love to hear the impact that's happening. I love to hear that we're making the right progress and we're making the strides that we need to. Craig, I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today and share
Thanks for having
this
me.
message with my audience. It means the world to me, and I think that you're doing incredible work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Excited to see what we do next and how many lives we can actually save along this trip together. So
Yeah, it's
thank
going
you
to be
so
epic.
much. Absolutely. As always, guys, keep reaching for the stars. Fall flat on your face, but remember, whenever we fall, always get up.